Chapter 121. He is our company's god of wealth. Early the next morning, while the sky was still a pale gray, Lin Yang was already awake. He carefully picked out an appropriate outfit, washed up quickly, and headed off to Phoenix Construction Company, feeling equal parts nervous and excited as he imagined his future home. He pictured his parents living comfortably and safely in the new house. The car pulled slowly into the company parking lot. Lin Yang took a deep breath, composed himself, and walked into the building. Halfway to the lobby, he went back to the car, took a carton of Haitiancha cigarettes from the trunk, and carried it with him. The lobby felt heavy, nearly deserted and oddly subdued. The staff moving about looked listless. Lin Yang walked straight to the front desk and asked politely, "Hello, I'm looking for Manager Xiao Jian. Which floor is his office on?" The receptionist looked up, a flicker of confusion passing over her face before she smoothed it into a professional smile. "He's on the 3rd floor, room 302. The elevator is to your left." Lin Yang nodded and headed for the elevator. The doors opened, and he pressed the button for the 3rd floor. When he stepped out, Office 302 was right in front of him. He straightened his jacket and knocked gently. "Come in," came a slightly tired voice. He pushed the door open. Xiao Jian sat behind his desk, papers spread before him, his expression tired and worried. He looked up only briefly. "Oh, you're here. Have a seat," he said, his tone flat and detached. Lin Yang placed the carton of Haitiancha on the desk. "Mr. Xiao, I brought these from my trip back from the provincial capital." Xiao Jian glanced at the cigarettes and shook his head. "I can't accept this. One shouldn't take favors without merit. Take them back later. Teacher Wang already told me about your situation. Tell me what you have in mind, and I'll see if it's feasible." Lin Yang sat and explained. "Mr. Xiao, thank you for seeing me. I want to tear down my parents' old house and rebuild it as a 3-story villa. I want it to be beautiful and comfortable, but above all secure. My parents are getting older, and I want them to be safe. I want the best security measures you can offer." Xiao Jian's brows creased. He set the documents aside, leaned back, and spoke slowly. "Those are high demands. Our company usually handles large residential developments where we can spread costs. Building a single private villa is expensive. We usually suggest hiring a local construction crew in the village." Lin Yang understood. Phoenix Construction handled big projects. Small rural houses weren't their usual work. Taking on a one-off villa would mean rejiggering cost accounting and personnel, and would drive costs up significantly. There was also reputational risk. If a company that normally builds big developments took on small jobs and they went wrong, it would be hard to recover. Still, Lin Yang was determined. "Money isn't an issue," he said. "If the house is done right, I'll pay whatever it takes. I trust your expertise and the company's capabilities. Please help me give my parents a house they'll be proud to live in." At that firm declaration, surprise flickered across Xiao Jian's face. He sat up straighter and reevaluated the young man before him. It dawned on him that this ordinary-looking youth might have hidden strength behind him. "Then what's your budget?" he asked. Lin Yang hesitated for a moment. He had roughly 100 to 200 million yuan available. He wanted top-quality work, including secret rooms and a panic room for valuables and safety. Those things would add significant cost. He thought of a news story from a dozen years ago about the wealthiest man in his village. His 5-story villa had cost 200 million then. Costs had risen since. He answered casually, "About 200 million. If that's not enough, I can add more." Xiao Jian's eyes widened. He had assumed Lin Yang was just an ordinary rural kid. He hadn't expected that kind of money. 200 million for a villa wasn't outrageous in itself. Xiao Jian knew wealthy people often spent lavishly on security and hidden systems. But what stunned him was that someone so young could command that budget. In his head, he ran the numbers. A high-end, heavily secured villa at that budget was the equivalent of dozens of ordinary apartment floors. In the current climate, this was the kind of project that could keep the company afloat this year. If he could land it, he'd be the hero who saved the firm. His attitude shifted instantly. He sprang up with a broad smile, walked over to Lin Yang, and clapped a hand warmly on his shoulder. "Lin Yang, you're truly a filial son. Had I known you were sincere and able, I wouldn't have hesitated. Don't worry, Our company will take this on. I'll assemble the most professional team and use the best materials. We'll build the most luxurious and secure house in your village." His tone was suddenly flattering and eager, the exact opposite of his earlier reserve. He poured Lin Yang a cup of hot tea, pulled out the company's portfolio from his drawer, and spread out photographs and case studies on the desk. "Look at these, our previous high-end projects. Our design and construction quality are top tier. If you have specific ideas, room layouts, decoration styles, anything, we'll customize the design to fit." Pointing at the pictures, he spoke with visible anticipation. Over the next hour, he went in-depth with Lin Yang, methodically asking about room numbers, functional divisions, courtyard layout, architectural style, and security requirements. He took notes relentlessly. Whenever Lin Yang proposed something, Xiaojian would nod and offer professional suggestions, practical, technical, and sometimes lavish. He listened as if Lin Yang were the project the company needed. They reached an initial agreement to cooperate. Xiaojian leaned forward, pen flying across his notepad, marking priorities with asterisks. 3 stories with a safe room, top-tier security systems, aging-in-place design. "I'll highlight these with the Design Institute," he said, sunlight breaking through the blinds and glinting off his glasses. When Lin Yang stood to leave, Xiaojian practically escorted him out. In the corridor, he slowed to walk beside him and gently guided Lin Yang by the elbow as though he were a VIP. At the elevator, he bowed and gestured, his suit tails fluttering with the motion. Outside in the parking lot, Xiaojian strode to Lin Yang's car, discreetly wiped the door handle with his cuff, and opened the door with a smile. "Mr. Lin, please get in. Drive safely." He remained standing at the rear of the car as it pulled out, hand raised in a continuous wave until the taillights disappeared around the corner. Back in the lobby, a few employees gathered near the front desk, whispering. Xiao Wei, the receptionist, shook her head over a file when Xiao Jian pushed the door open and overheard them talking about the previously cold manager. He laughed, loosened his tie, and said with a grin, tapping the marble countertop for emphasis, "From now on, the gentleman we just saw off," he paused for effect, "is our company's god of wealth. His appointments go straight through VIP channels. Anyone who neglects him will answer for it." His smile stayed in place, but the words carried weight, and the lobby went quiet, everyone feeling the pressure of his announcement. After finishing the work on the old house, Lin Yang checked his watch. It was just after 8, still early. He remembered the promise he'd made to his father the day before to buy him a car, so he went home, picked his parents up, and drove to the county's auto city. The place looked nothing like the car dealerships he'd seen in the big cities. There wasn't a single brand-exclusive 4S store. Instead, the whole auto city was filled with multi-brand dealers crammed together. The sheer variety made his head spin. Unsure which dealer was most trustworthy or which model offered the best value, Lin Yang hesitated a moment, then followed his instincts and walked into the largest showroom, Dacheng Famous Cars. He figured a bigger dealer probably had better selection and more reliable service. "Hello, sir, madam." A sharply dressed man in his 30s or 40s greeted them as they entered. He wore a broad, professional smile and moved with practiced enthusiasm. "I'm the manager here. How can I help you?" Lin Yang turned to his father. "I want to buy a car for my dad. It needs to be safe and easy to operate, nothing complicated, something suitable for an older person to drive." The manager nodded eagerly. "Yes, we have several options. Please come this way." He led them to a large, imposing SUV and began his pitch with the confidence of someone who'd said the same lines 1,000 times. "This is the Wenji M9. It's a leader when it comes to safety and ease of use. It should fit your needs perfectly." He ran his hand along the car's body like he was introducing a prized possession. In terms of safety, the M9 is equipped with Huawei A's, and it has an exceptionally strong Xuanwu body. Aluminum alloy makes up about 80% of the vehicle's structure. For convenience, it has intelligent voice control, so many functions can be accessed by voice alone. "No matter how much I explain, nothing beats you experiencing it firsthand," he added with a slight bow. "Okay," Lin Yang said, and helped his father into the car. The manager climbed in with them and demonstrated the main functions. Lin Yang watched from outside as his father's face softened into a smile. Every little gesture showed how much he liked the car. After the test, Lin Weiguo asked, "Manager, how much is this car?" "Starting at 429,800, the manager replied. The price froze the smile on Lin Weiguo's face. Surprise and hesitation flickered across his features. He inhaled sharply, then said, "That's expensive." He tugged at Lin Yang's sleeve, frowning. "Xiaoyang, that's too much. It'd be a waste for me to drive something like that. You worked hard to earn money. We don't need to spend so much. Buy something cheaper, as long as it can drive." Lin Yang only smiled and patted his father's shoulder. "Dad, how can you say that? This car is safe and easy to use. You can control it by voice. If you drive it, Mom and I will feel much better. You and Mom can take trips and see the world. Isn't that great?" He helped his father settle into the comfortable seat. "Look at these seats. They've got massage functions, so you won't get tired on long rides. The cabin's spacious, too, so you can fit luggage easily. Remember how careful we had to be with money before? Things are different now. We don't have to worry the way we did back then. If you like it, that's what matters." His parents had only recently learned that he was doing well. They didn't know how much, and old habits die hard. Their first reaction was still to choose whatever was cheapest. Lin Yang knew he couldn't change them overnight, so he kept his tone patient and sincere. Slowly, Lin Weiguo's resistance eased. He looked the car over again, imagining driving his wife out on trips. The hesitation on his face faded, and a small excitement appeared. "All right," he said quietly. "Since you say so, I'll listen to you." Lin Yang smiled and nodded, then told the manager, "We'll take the M9, the highest trim." The manager's smile vanished for a heartbeat. He blinked in disbelief, unable to find words. He'd never expected such a decisive young buyer, let alone one willing to order the top trim as casually as picking vegetables at a market. After a moment, he recovered, his grin returning, broader and more enthusiastic than before. "Excellent, sir. Don't worry, we'll handle the paperwork right away so you can pick up the car as soon as possible." Just then, Lin Yang's phone rang. It was Hu Qian. Tomorrow was the Qingming Festival, and she was likely calling about the trip to Xiangxi. She and her best friend Lin Shi had already agreed to go together. Chapter 123. I Think You're Jealous. Lin Yang picked up the phone. Sure enough, Hu Qian was on the line, talking about her trip to Fenghuang County for the Qingming Festival. He had promised to take them to see the corpse driving performance, so he said, "I know, I've already cleared my schedule for tomorrow. Call me when you get there." After hanging up, Lin Yang helped his father sign the contract, make the payment, and finalize the purchase. There happened to be a top trim model in stock, so they could drive it away that day after getting a temporary license plate. Seeing his father growing impatient, Lin Yang called a designated driver to take his own car home, then drove the new one with his parents. Although his father wanted to drive, he hadn't received his license yet, so he had to sit in the passenger seat and take it all in. Lin Weiguo had never imagined that, in his old age, he would own a car worth hundreds of thousands of yuan. He ran his hand over the seats, almost disbelieving. "I'm not dreaming, am I?" he asked. "Dad, it's real," Lin Yang said with a smile. Lin Weiguo chuckled and shook his head. "When you were little, a fortune teller said you'd do great things. Looks like he was right." "Why haven't you told me that before?" Lin Yang smiled. "Next time I see that fortune teller, I'll give him a big thank you gift." He started the car and headed home. Lin Weiguo's curiosity about every feature made the journey feel long in the best way. He exclaimed at the dashboard, the controls, the smooth ride. As they neared the village, his excitement bubbled over like a schoolboy's. He scanned the road for familiar faces, then suddenly used the car's voice control to roll down the window. "Grandpa Wang, look!" Lin Weiguo leaned out, beaming so widely his whole face lit up. "My son bought this for my birthday, a new M9. It's the newest model, full of tech." Grandpa Wang, who was sitting outside his doorway basking in the sun, looked up and adjusted his glasses. Surprise flickered across his face, then a kind smile. "Lin Yang's really something. You'll be living comfortably now." Lin Weiguo nodded proudly. "Yes, thanks to my son, thanks to my son." They drove on. Not far off, Aunt Li was carrying a bucket of water. Lin Weiguo asked Lin Yang to stop, hopped out, and invited her over. She set the bucket down and circled the car, praising it. "This car is grand," she said. "Lin Yang is such a filial son. Look how shiny it is. It must be so comfortable inside." Lin Weiguo straightened his back. "Of course, the seats even have massage functions, so long trips won't tire you out, and the safety's top-notch. I feel secure driving it." Passing the village convenience store, a group of young people were chatting by the entrance. Lin Weiguo wound down the window and called out, "Youngsters, look at the car my son bought me. Aren't you jealous?" They glanced over with envious smiles. One of the young men laughed. "Uncle Lin, you're lucky. When can we take a ride in it?" Lin Weiguo laughed loudly. "Whenever you're free. The lighting is full pixel, so pretty at night, like a concert." With every greeting and boast, Lin Weiguo's happiness swelled. He was proud of his son and content with his life, and he wanted the whole village to know. His loud, jubilant display quickly rippled through the community. Under the old locust tree, a few women paused from their vegetable picking to whisper. One, plainly dressed, pouted. "Did you see Lin Weiguo parading around? Showing off like that, it's just a car his son bought him. Why flaunt it?" Another nudged her gently. "Don't be sour. His son did well and bought him a nice car. If it were me, I'd be thrilled too. Lin Weiguo's always been a decent man. What's the harm in enjoying yourself?" An older woman nearby added, "He worked hard his whole life. Now his child's successful. He can be proud. Let's not be mean. Maybe our kids will make us proud one day too." At the other end of the village, a group of men sat smoking in front of the convenience store, talking it over. A young man flicked ash and said with a bit of envy, "Uncle Lin's lucky, an M9. I've only seen those on TV." A middle-aged man blew a smoke ring and shrugged. "Maybe he's showing off, but Lin Yang did well for himself. He must have made a lot of money somewhere to buy this." An older man, who had been quiet, spoke up slowly. "You young people don't get it. Lin Weiguo's not the bragging type. He's proud because his son made it. He suffered a lot. Isn't that what parents do for their kids? If your child succeeds, you'd feel the same." Rumors, amusement, and envy spread through the village like a breeze. But Lin Weiguo, basking in the joy his son had given him, was blissfully unaware. He planned future drives with his wife, imagined weekend trips, and savored the feeling of being cared for. For the moment, nothing could disturb his contentment. Lin Yang eased the brand-new ITO M9 into his family yard. Its sleek lines caught the sunlight and flashed brilliantly, immediately drawing the neighbors' attention. In no time, small clusters of people had gathered, craning to look and whispering with curiosity and admiration. "Lin Yang, is this the car you bought for your dad? It's amazing." Uncle Wang was the first to say, reaching out to run his hand over the body with a look of envy. "Yes, it's the new ITO M9. Lin Yang answered with a smile. "It cost over 500,000 yuan. "You don't say." Everyone murmured, faces full of surprise. Lin Yang's such a filial son, making sure his father can enjoy life as soon as he earns money. Mrs. Zhang gave an approving thumbs up. "As parents, don't we just want our children to do well?" Lin Yang really sets a fine example. A bespectacled young man slipped through the crowd. His name was Zhao Yu, a local car enthusiast who knew his models inside out. He circled the M9, eyes bright, and launched into a running commentary. "This is an M9, top tier. Look at the lines. Smooth, distinctive, very recognizable. The tech is impressive. Advanced driver assistance, zero-gravity seats, comfort straight out of a luxury car." Listening to Zhao Yu only made the neighbors more envious. Someone asked shyly, "Can we sit in it?" "Of course, help yourselves." Lin Yang laughed, clearly proud, and opened the doors as if presenting a prized possession. One by one they climbed in, eager and cautious. Zhao Yu planted himself in the driver's seat, fingers gripping the wheel, whispering, "The steering feel is incredible." He poked every button, fascinated by the controls. Mrs. Zhang was escorted into the back and once seated, immediately sighed, "Oh my, these seats are heavenly, like sitting on clouds." "These are zero-gravity seats," Lin Yang explained. "They simulate weightlessness to reduce pressure on the body, so you don't get tired even on long drives. They also have a massage function. Want to try?" He helped her switch it on. The seat hummed to life with a gentle vibration. Mrs. Zhang's eyes widened in surprise and delight. "This is unbelievable. I've never sat in anything so comfortable. Weiguo, you're lucky. And Lin Yang, you've done very well." The compliment sparked even more praise from the onlookers. Meanwhile, Zhao Yu found a button on the center console labeled autonomous driving and grew even more excited. "This car can park itself," he announced. "Really?" People exchanged skeptical looks. "Watch." Lin Yang stepped out, took his phone, and activated the parking assist. The car moved forward a little, then steered and backed into the space with calm precision, as if an expert driver were guiding it. The neighbors' mouths hung open. "I'd never have to worry about parking again," one girl said, envious. "Technology is moving too fast," another neighbor sighed. The group clustered around, chattering and admiring the car, while Lin Yang and his father, Lin Weiguo, basked in the attention and praise. Early the next morning, just as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the curtains, Lin Yang was awakened by his phone ringing. He fumbled for it and picked up. Hu Qian's cheerful voice came through. "Lin Yang, we've arrived in Fenghuang County." "Already?" Lin Yang snapped awake. "Great. I'll come to town and take you to the local specialties." After a quick wash and a tidy-up, he drove into the county seat. From the roadside, he spotted Hu Qian and Lin Shi waving. He pulled up, rolled down the window and smiled. "Long time no see. Follow me." They climbed into a Porsche and trailed behind him. Lin Yang led them to a well-known beef noodle stall and parked. The sight of a handsome young man with two attractive women immediately drew attention from passers-by. At the counter, Lin Yang ordered, "Auntie, 3 bowls of beef noodles, extra beef, please." The women had driven through the night from the provincial capital and were starving. People nearby whispered and stared, jealous, curious, incredulous. The bowls arrived steaming, wide, translucent noodles swimming in rich beef broth, piled with tender slices of beef. A dish of chopped scallions and cilantro and a dab of bright chili oil sat alongside. Hu Qian and Lin Shi dug in eagerly. This is so good," Hu Qian said with a mouthful, giving a muffled thumbs up. "The broth is so fresh and the beef is full of flavor." Lin Shi nodded. "I've never had noodles this good. The texture of the noodles is perfect." Lin Yang watched them eat, pleased. "If you like it, go ahead. Order more if you want." They laughed and talked, enjoying the simple pleasure and the hum of the stall. When the meal was over, the owner called out the price. 3 bowls with extra meat. That'll be 54 yuan. Lin Yang reached for his phone to scan the QR code, but Hu Qian was quicker. "I'll pay," she said, already scanning. "You brought us here. This one's on me." Lin Yang didn't argue over a few dozen yuan. They left together, smiling, while the stall regulars resumed their conversation. "Is that a male model? Look how handsome he is. 2 beauties with him," one patron whispered. "Maybe. That's why the girls are paying. Either he's a star or they're loaded," another said. They watched the trio drive off, still murmuring about luck and looks and fame, as the 3 friends headed out to the rest of the county for the day. Chapter 125, Lin. After breakfast, Lin Yang took Hu Qian and Lin Shi back to the hotel to rest. It was the same hotel Chen Qingqing was staying at. The last time she'd heard Lin Yang mention taking Hu Qian and Lin Shi to see the corpse driving performance, she'd insisted on coming along. With all 3 staying in the same place, it would be convenient for Lin Yang to pick them up later. Once Hu Qian and Lin Shi were settled, Lin Yang drove to Phoenix Construction Company alone. He hadn't expected to get a message from Xiaojian the very next day after outlining his ideas. The plans were ready, and he could come choose one. When he arrived, Xiaojian was holding an early morning meeting in the lobby, pacing and exhorting his staff. "Difficulties are only temporary. If we all pull together, there's nothing we can't solve." A sudden screech of brakes cut him off. Xiaojian looked up to see a large off-road vehicle draw up at the entrance. He recognized it at once, Lin Yang's car. Excitement lit his face. "Quick, everyone, move. The god of wealth has arrived. Girls, get in line and be ready to welcome him." A number of the female employees had seen Lin Yang the day before. Xiaojian had instructed them to give him a grand welcome. After all, who wouldn't be impressed by a client who could allocate 200 million? They straightened their clothes, smoothed their hair, and marched in formation to the entrance, each eager to make a good impression. As Lin Yang stepped out of the car, Xiaojian and the employees called in unison, "Welcome, President Lin." Lin Yang blinked, a little taken aback. "Xiao Shushu, what's all this?" Xiaojian hurried forward and bowed. "President Lin, After you left yesterday, the chairman reprimanded me soundly. Although you're my wife's student, you're also our biggest client right now. From now on, I'll address you as President Lin. I didn't expect you so early. I may have been a bit overexcited. Please rest assured, I'll make sure everything is arranged perfectly. He escorted Lin Yang into the reception room. A handful of female employees followed, carrying fresh fruit, delicate pastries, and a pot of steaming, fragrant tea. They set everything out around Lin Yang, ready to attend to him. After a brief rest, Xiaojian beamed, produced several neatly drawn villa plans from a portfolio, and laid them out on the coffee table. President Lin, we rushed these plans together overnight. They represent our team's best effort. Please take a look, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Lin Yang set his cup down and picked up a drawing. Xiaojian leaned in, eager, and began his presentation. This first plan uses the most advanced intelligent security system currently available. High-definition surveillance cameras will be installed around the villa for 360-degree real-time monitoring with no blind spots. They have intelligent recognition. If an unfamiliar person approaches, the system triggers an automatic alarm and pushes the information to your phone immediately. He circled camera locations on the plan with a pen. The main gate will have a top-tier multi-factor entry system, fingerprint, password, and facial recognition, so only authorized people can enter. We've also treated the perimeter wall specially. It's higher and fitted with a pulsed electronic fence. Anyone trying to climb over will trigger an alarm and receive a mild electric shock, effectively preventing intrusion. Xiaojian watched Lin Yang's reactions closely, confidence in his voice. Lin Yang nodded lightly and tapped the table, still studying the plans. Xiaojian moved on to the second plan. This one emphasizes human defense. We'll provide a professional security team for 24-hour patrols. The guards are rigorously trained with strong emergency response capabilities. Multiple emergency alarm buttons will be installed throughout the villa, in bedrooms and main areas, so a single press will summon security immediately. We've also built close cooperative ties with surrounding security firms and the local police, achieving information sharing and coordinated prevention and response. In an emergency, they can react quickly to ensure the safety of you and your family. As he spoke, Xiaojian gestured to help Lin Yang visualize the setup. Lin Yang listened and then asked seriously, President Xiao, the plans sound comprehensive, but how do we handle extreme situations? For example, a hacker attack on the intelligent system or criminals prepared to physically damage security installations. Xiaojian had expected such questions. He smiled and answered calmly. President Lin, that's a key concern for us. For the intelligence system, we use top-level network security, multiple firewalls, and real-time monitoring. If the system detects abnormal access or an attack, it immediately activates emergency protocols, severs suspicious connections, and alerts our professional network security team. We also have data backup and recovery, so critical data isn't lost and the system can be restored quickly. He continued, if physical security devices are damaged, our patrols monitor equipment status. Any anomaly triggers an immediate call to the maintenance team for emergency repairs. We've designed redundancy into critical systems. For example, some cameras use dual power and dual communication lines, so if one fails, the other keeps working and coverage remains intact. And again, our ties with nearby security companies and the police allow them to reach the site quickly to provide support, creating layered protection. Lin Yang nodded in approval. He reviewed the plans again, weighing the trade-offs. Finally, he pointed to one and said, President Xiao, this plan does the best job of balancing security, comfort, and customization. Let's go with it. We'll iron out the details as we go. Xiaojian's face split into a radiant smile. President Lin, thank you. We'll design and build to the letter of this plan and perfect every detail to give you a luxurious villa you'll be satisfied with. Next, we can sign the contract and schedule the work. Chapter 126. How can you have double standards? By the time Lin Yang finished work, the hour hand had already crept to noon. He drove from the construction company to the hotel to pick up Chen Qingqing, Hu Qian, and Lin Shi for lunch, planning to watch the corpse-driving performance that afternoon. 10 minutes later, the car pulled up steadily at the hotel entrance. From the driver's seat, he could see them waiting. Chen Qingqing wore a white dress. The hem fluttered in the breeze like a blooming lily, fresh and refined. Hu Qian had on a simple business suit, her short hair neat and efficient, radiating competence and confidence. Lin Shi was playful in overalls with a high ponytail, all youthful energy. Lin Yang stepped out smiling and waved. "Sorry to keep you waiting." "Finally," Lin Shi teased, laughing. "My stomach's been rumbling." They piled into the car, chatting and laughing all the way to Xiangxi tribe. The drive was full of easy conversation. Lin Yang found himself watching them in the rearview mirror, warmth swelling in his chest. The Xiangxi tribe restaurant looked like a small time capsule. Wooden tables and chairs, folk murals on the walls, and the faint scent of cured meat hanging in the air. It felt like stepping back into old Xiangxi. After they ordered, Hu Qian picked up her teacup, took a thoughtful sip, and looked across at Lin Yang. "I've got good news," she said seriously. Foodie Battery's stock has been taking off. The earlier volatility was caused deliberately. Liu Shangdong, the second largest shareholder who spread false information, has been arrested. Foodie officially announced that the solid-state battery is real and in mass production. The stock's been climbing like a rocket, about 20% a day. Your shares are worth over $1 billion now. Lin Yang nodded. None of it surprised him. He smiled faintly. "Looks like my initial judgment was right, and a lot of that was thanks to your careful management." Hu Qian continued. "Also, because of your heads up earlier, I avoided putting money into autonomous driving stocks. I helped clients dodge losses, and now more people want me to advise them. The capital I'm managing is huge, but my team's too small. I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. Honestly, you should start your own investment company. With your vision, you'd do great." Lin Yang considered for a moment, then asked, "What about the offer to be chairman of my company?" This time, Hu Qian didn't hesitate. "I'm willing." She remembered first meeting Lin Yang and thinking he was just another young man. As they spent more time together, his clear vision and decisive business sense had impressed her again and again. Take Foodie Battery. When opinions were split, Lin Yang backed the solid-state battery and pushed the plan through. The result had proven him right. His calmness in a volatile market and his ability to stay unshaken by short-term swings marked him out in a world where such people were rare. As the largest shareholder of Foodie Battery, he stood at the leading edge of the industry with enormous potential. Her current job was stable, but offered limited upward mobility. The work had grown repetitive and no longer challenged her. Joining Lin Yang would mean leaving that plateau and taking part in something pioneering, an opportunity to use her skills fully. The thought of fighting alongside him and building something big made her quietly excited. So when he asked, she said yes without hesitation, imagining the bright future ahead. Relief washed over Lin Yang. He trusted Hu Qian's ability and dedication. With her running things, founding the company would be far smoother. "All right," he said. "I still need to study the details of setting up a company, but in the meantime, I'll need your help with the preliminary preparations." "No problem." Hu Qian's eyes gleamed. The waiter arrived with a parade of dishes: spicy chopped chili fish head, tender Xiangxi cured meats, and fragrant duck blood tofu, among other regional delicacies. They ate, swapped stories, and laughter filled the private room. After lunch, they went to the open-air theater for the charm of Xiangxi. The stage sat in a natural amphitheater among green hills. Rustic wooden stands, the scent of grass, and the wide sky gave the performance an intimate, elemental feel. Lin Yang walked through the crowd with Chen Qing, Hu Qian, and Lin Shi, and they found seats in the front middle row. His presence didn't go unnoticed. The men nearby eyed him with a mix of envy and admiration. "Who's that guy?" "3 gorgeous women with him. They look like they're from the city. Must be rich. Only someone with money could pull that off." The women in the audience focused on him too. A girl who'd come to Xiangxi with her boyfriend pointed him out with bright eyes. "He's so handsome. I'm so jealous of the girls with him." Her boyfriend, Liang Chao, sneered. "Humph, 3 women tagging along. What a cad. Unlike me, I only have eyes for you." "Liang Chao, don't be ridiculous," the girl replied. "He's attractive, fine, but what's the harm? A man can be cautious choosing girlfriends, can't he?" Liang Chao scoffed. "You call me unfaithful if I glance at other women, but he's with 3 and you call him careful? Double standards, Xiao Fang. If you were as handsome as him, I'd do the same, she shot back. On stage, the show began. The first act, Climbing the Mountain of Knives, featured a burly man in traditional garb, barefoot, who climbed a ladder of sharp blades step by step. Each step drew gasps from the audience, but he moved as if on solid ground, his face set with fierce determination. Applause and cheers followed when he reached the top. Next came Descending into the Sea of Fire. A ring of flames licked the center of the stage and the air shimmered. A performer stepped into the inferno, walking and jumping through the fire as if his feet were immune to the heat. The flames illuminated his determined face and sent the crowd to its feet. At last came the most talked-about segment, the corpse driving. Dusk settled, a thin mist rolled in, and the stage took on a ghostly mood. Low, mournful music throbbed as figures in black robes and bamboo hats shuffled on stage. Behind them, a line of zombies shuffled forward, clad in Qing Dynasty official robes with pale faces and vacant eyes. Their jerking hops and hollow stares sent an involuntary chill through the audience. Chen Qingqing went pale the instant she saw them. She gripped Lin Yang's arm and trembled, then buried her face in his shoulder. "Ah, so scary," she whispered, voice shaking. Lin Yang patted her hand and murmured, "Don't be scared. It's all fake. It's just a performance." Hu Qian watched them. A quiet disappointment tugged at her chest as she saw Chen Qingqing cling to Lin Yang. A flash of envy and helplessness passed over her face. She told herself, not for the first time, that Chen Qingqing was outstanding, beautiful, and wealthy, and she was just an employee. Better to stop thinking about it. Help him build the company, manage the funds. That was enough. She shifted her gaze from the couple to the eerie stage, tucking the thought away like a folded note in her pocket. Chapter 127, Difficulties in Obtaining Building Approval. After Lin Yang had accompanied Chen Qingqing, Hu Qian, and Lin Shi to see the spectacular, mysterious corpse-driving performance, night had already fallen. As the streetlights came on, Fenghuang Ancient City looked like a dreamlike painting in the dark. He took them to a well-known local restaurant where they enjoyed the region's specialties. The tangy sour fish and the silky rice tofu drew high praise from everyone, and laughter filled the table. After dinner, Lin Yang thoughtfully walked them back to the hotel. Along the way, they kept talking about the day's odd and interesting events. Hu Qian and Lin Shi had other commitments, but promised to return to Fenghuang County on the last day of the Qingming holiday. Lin Yang had already asked Chen Qingqing about the return trip. She had no objection to taking Hu Qian's car back to Xing City. Once they were settled in, Lin Yang drove home. Phoenix Construction Company moved with startling efficiency. Early the next morning, just as dawn was breaking and the plan had been finalized, they sent a team of professionals to Lin Yang's house. The well-trained crew immediately unpacked their measuring instruments and began taking precise dimensions. Their arrival in the village created an instant stir. "What's going on? Is our village going to be torn down?" Wang Daji's eyes widened as she asked, baffled. "Don't be ridiculous. Our village is so remote. Who would want to demolish it?" Uncle Liu scoffed. "That's true, but why would such a big construction crew be here? It's quite a sight," Wang Daji added, scratching her head. They seemed to be headed toward Lin Weiguo's place. "Let's go take a look," someone called, and the small crowd at the village entrance followed the construction vehicles like magnetized iron filings. "Kaixia, why's that construction crew at your house? Is something wrong?" People asked with concern when they reached Yang Kaixia's gate. Yang Kaixia smiled and replied quickly to calm them. "It's nothing. Our house is old. We're preparing to rebuild. After all these years, it's time for a renovation." "Oh, that's it. Your house is really too old. But you know, building a new house in the countryside isn't as simple as it used to be. It's hard to get approval unless you have connections," Wang Daji said, frowning. "I know," Yang Kaixia replied, worry creasing her brow. "My house is already almost dangerous to live in. They shouldn't make it so difficult to get approval." She was anxious because the last time they had built a house was decades ago. So much had changed since then. She kept telling herself to check with her son later to see if he'd already got the permits. If the approval didn't come through, all their current work would be wasted. From inside the house, Lin Yang heard the commotion. He climbed out of bed, heavy with sleep, and saw the crew in their vests measuring around the property. He knew they needed those measurements to produce a proper design plan. After washing and dressing, he went downstairs, where his mother asked him with concern, "Xiaoyang, I heard people saying it's very hard to get approval to build now. Do you know anything about it?" "Don't worry, Mom. It'll be fine." Lin Yang patted his chest confidently. "Frankly, our house is practically unsafe. How could they stop us from rebuilding?" He had already investigated the approval process and had asked Xiaojian to prepare the application materials. All that remained was to submit them to the village authorities and wait. Suddenly, Yang Keixia's face went pale. "Oh," she cried out, then her eyes rolled back and she collapsed. Lin Yang reacted instantly, catching her and asking anxiously, "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing. I just felt dizzy," she said weakly, beads of sweat on her forehead. Lin Yang wanted to take her to the hospital immediately, but she protested that it happened often and she'd be fine after a rest. He refused to accept that, arguing, "Don't skip the hospital to save money. Health is everything. Money can be earned back." His voice thickened. He was terrified of losing her. In the end, Lin Yang and Lin Weiguo took Yang Keixia to the best hospital in Fenghuang County. They completed the admission procedures, and Lin Yang ran back and forth, paying fees, getting forms, and arranging tests, barely pausing for breath. By the time the examinations were all done, they had to wait for the results, which would come the next day. It was already evening by then. Lin Weiguo stayed at the hospital with Yang Keixia, while Lin Yang drove home alone. The next morning, Lin Yang arrived at the hospital early, carrying a thermos of hot porridge he'd woken to make, each grain stirred with care. But when he entered the ward, his mother was gone. The bed was neatly made, empty. He felt a spike of worry and asked an elderly woman nearby. The woman said Yang Keixia had gone downstairs for a walk, and relief washed over him. He took out his phone to call his mother. Down in the hospital's flower bed area, a crowd had gathered 3 people deep, forming a dense ring. Yang Keixia had been walking when she felt a tightening in her chest and sensed something wrong. She hurried toward the noise and pushed through the crowd. An elderly man lay on the ground, his face pale, brow furrowed, sweat beading on his forehead. A walking stick lay nearby, and an overturned insulated thermos left buns and porridge scattered on the path. It seemed the man had suddenly collapsed while visiting a patient. The onlookers whispered and stared, but no one stepped forward. Some people averted their eyes and hurried past. Some stopped, hands rubbing together nervously, debating whether to help but shrinking back. Others shook their heads and muttered, "You can't help an elderly person casually these days. If it turns into a scam, you'll be in big trouble." A young man in a suit took a step toward the fallen man, but was pulled back by a friend who hissed, "Don't get involved. Didn't you see the news? Helping someone cost someone tens of thousands the other day." The young man hesitated and then retreated into the crowd. At that moment, Yang Keixia forced her way through the ring of bystanders. Chapter 128. My Father is Li Gang. When she saw the elderly woman fall, Yang Keixia's face filled with concern. Without hesitation, she knelt down and carefully helped her to her feet, brushing dust from her clothes as she asked anxiously, "Are you all right? Did you hurt yourself anywhere?" The old woman took a moment to steady herself, then shook her head slightly and said weakly, "I'm fine. Thanks to you, young lady." Her voice trembled, and her eyes were full of gratitude as she glanced at the indifferent crowd. With a bitter smile, she added, "These days, people are so ungrateful. It scares decent folks from helping others. Aren't you afraid I'll try to extort you?" Yang Keixia smiled and shook her head. "I'm a little worried," she admitted, "but I couldn't ignore someone falling. I couldn't live with myself if something happened, and I did nothing. Besides, we don't have money, so extortion isn't exactly a threat." The old woman laughed, admiration and relief in her sound. She patted Yang Keixia's hand. "You're a good person. There really are still kind people left in the world." At that moment, Yang Keixia's phone rang. Lin Yang. She answered with a smile. "I'm downstairs. I'll be right up." She turned to the elderly woman. "My son is here to see me. I should go back up to the ward. Please take care of yourself. If you feel worse, go to the hospital and get checked." Thank you, young lady, the woman replied gratefully as Yang Chexia headed back toward the ward. Before she could sit down, an elderly man had followed her into the room. Surprised, she watched him approach. He explained with a smile, "This old lady in the ward is my wife. I came to see her." He walked over to the bedside and told his wife what had happened. The wife's eyes filled with gratitude. She clasped Yang Keishia's hand and said excitedly, "Thank you so much. If it weren't for you, I don't know what would have happened to my husband. You're a wonderful person." Yang Chexia waved her hand modestly. It was nothing. Anyone who saw it would have helped. The elderly woman studied Yang Kexia with growing fondness. "Your son is so devoted, coming to see you early like that," she said. Yang Keishia's face lit up. "Yes, my son makes me proud. He's been sensible since he was little, worked hard at his studies, and now he works very hard." "Is he married?" the woman asked. Yang Kexia sighed. "Not yet. He's busy with work and hasn't had the time." The woman brightened. "I have a niece around your son's age, pretty, kind, and she's a doctor at a top hospital in the provincial capital. Want me to introduce them?" Yang Kexia blushed, a little embarrassed. "Ah, it's not necessary." But the woman persisted, squeezing her hand. "Why not? Young people should meet and make friends." Amused by her enthusiasm, Yang Kexia asked Lin Yang to take out his phone and add the elderly woman's WeChat. After visiting his mother, Lin Yang drove home. His mind was still on her condition. The local hospital wasn't as efficient as the big provincial hospitals. Many test results wouldn't be ready until the next day. Although nothing serious showed in the early tests, he couldn't help worrying. He was lost in thought and barely noticed the road. Approaching an intersection, he waited for the light to change from red to green. When it did, he started to drive, just as a car from the right suddenly cut across and smashed into his vehicle with a deafening crash. The impact shoved him forward. Fortunately, he was wearing a seatbelt, and the U8 was large and heavy enough that he escaped without serious injury. Heart pounding, Lin Yang unbuckled and stepped out to inspect the damage. The right side of his car was dented and the door warped. Glass littered the pavement. The car that had hit him was a black BMW, new and obviously expensive, with its bumper hanging loose. There was only a straight lane to the right. The BMW had illegally turned left. It was clearly the other driver's fault. The BMW's driver jumped out, swearing. He was dressed like one of those flashy young men who thought money could buy anything. Anger flared in Lin Yang, but he kept his voice calm. "You illegally turned left and hit my car. This is your responsibility. I'm calling the police." The other driver sneered when Lin Yang reached for his phone. "Idiot, why don't you ask around who I am? My dad is Li Gang. Do you think anyone dares to mess with me?" Chapter 129. The live broadcast room was blocked. Lin Yang wasn't someone who looked for trouble, but that didn't mean he was afraid of it or that he would take abuse lying down. He wanted to slap the kid in front of him, but they were at a camera-covered intersection. If he hit him here, he'd be the one in the wrong. Still, he couldn't let the boy get away with his arrogance. The best way to deal with that kind of person was to strip him of his shamelessness. Lin Yang remembered how old Wang had used public opinion to strike back and realized it could be a powerful weapon if used right. He pulled out his phone, opened Douyin, hit the live button, and typed an attention-grabbing title. "Li Gang's son is back again." Then he started streaming. The young man only grew bolder. He stepped forward, jabbed a finger at Lin Yang's phone, sneered, and shouted, "You think a little live stream can do anything? My father's Li Gang. Around here, there's nothing I can't handle. Show me some respect. Do you really want to pick a fight?" He puffed out his chest like the world owed him deference. Lin Yang stayed calm. He aimed the camera at the kid and explained the situation clearly and calmly to his growing audience. "Everyone, look, this intersection has only a straight-through lane. He forced a left turn and hit my car. The responsibility is clearly his, but he refuses to admit it and is cursing at me. Now he's even bragging about his connections." He panned the camera to the lane markings and the point of impact so viewers could see the evidence for themselves. As he narrated, viewers pieced the scene together. The kid had illegally turned left from a straight lane and collided with Lin Yang's lawfully driven vehicle, then blamed Lin Yang for blocking his way. The live viewer count shot up like a rocket. A few minutes later, thousands were watching, and the chat filled with outraged comments. This guy's so arrogant. He broke traffic rules, caused an accident, and now he plays the victim. My father's Li Gang? Who does he think he is? This is outrageous. He needs to be held accountable. Just because he has connections, he thinks he can do anything? No way. Some viewers dredged up the infamous My Father is Li Gang episode from 10 years earlier. Remember the drunk driver who shouted, My father is Li Gang, and thought he was untouchable? He ended up sentenced to 6 years and now can only work as a painter. This one will get his too. That comment quickly racked up likes and replies. People joked that maybe the current boy would soon be a colleague of that earlier son, now a painter, if history repeated itself. The flood of comments became a tidal wave of indignation. The stream exploded in popularity and began trending across platforms. At the county's most luxurious hotel, a celebratory banquet was in full swing. Li Gang sat at the head table, basking in praise. His recent promotion to the county's top leadership post had put him firmly in the spotlight. Glasses were raised, congratulations were offered, and everyone took turns flattering him. Congratulations on the promotion, Leader Lai. We'll be counting on your leadership. That's right. This position was destined for you. You deserve it. Li Gang reveled in it, smiling and toasting with the others. He remembered how he'd advanced. His predecessor had ordered a forced, county-wide change of shop sign colors that enraged local business owners. The issue had been amplified online by someone with a lot of traffic, climbing all the way to higher authorities. The previous leader was dismissed, and Li Gang had stepped in to take the post. Just as the celebration reached its peak, his assistant burst into the private room, pale and flustered. He hurried to Li Gang's side, whispered something in his ear, and the smile drained from Li Gang's face. He stood up so abruptly his chair scraped the floor. Conversations died down as everyone glanced over, surprised by the sudden change. Li Gang fumbled for his phone and opened Douyin. The live stream that came up on the screen showed his son behaving arrogantly at an intersection, and the comment section below was an angry torrent. Li Gang's hand shook. He knew the force of public opinion. If this spread, everything he'd worked for could collapse, and he might face serious consequences. Quick, do whatever it takes to stop this from spreading, he said in a trembling voice. His assistant nodded and rushed out to pull strings, trying to contact people who could remove the stream, delete posts, and stop the news from spreading. Back on the street, Lin Yang's live stream continued to heat up until the screen suddenly went black. A system message replaced the video. Due to live stream violation, the live stream room has been banned. Chapter 130. The county has a housing approval problem. Lin Yang frowned. The young man who had been so loud yesterday had indeed seemed well connected. The live stream was taken down almost immediately. But Lin didn't expect much more could be done against someone who relied only on a live stream. Online influence takes time to build. Public opinion needs to ferment before it can reach its peak. Given how the phrase, "My father is Li Gang," had blown up years ago, Lin was sure that clips from yesterday's stream would still spread. Whoever had the power to shut down the live feed couldn't stop netizens across the country from sharing the footage. He closed the app and called the police. A calm voice from the traffic police asked for the accident location, a description of the scene, and information about injuries, then said they would send officers right away. Soon, a traffic police vehicle, lights flashing, arrived. The officers methodically documented the scene, photographing both vehicles' points of impact, skid marks, scattered debris, and then questioned Lin and the young man, taking careful notes. Lin recounted the events clearly and calmly. The other young man answered with a smug, belligerent tone, repeatedly invoking his father's name as if that would intimidate the officers. After completing the on-site investigation, the traffic police asked both parties to go to the station for further processing. At the station, the young man continued to act out. As soon as he entered the processing room, he began to shout at the staff. "Do you know who my father is? My father is Li Gang. Don't you dare make trouble for me. Sort this out now, or I'll have him fire every one of you." His shrill voice clashed with the orderly quiet of the station and drew displeased looks from the staff. Officer Liu, the case officer, was a seasoned, no-nonsense man. He met the young man's bluster with steady eyes and a serious expression, unfazed by the threats. Based on-site photos, skid mark measurements, intersection surveillance footage, and both parties' statements, Officer Liu quickly reached a determination. Lei Wenlong, the young man, was entirely at fault. He held out the accident responsibility report and, pointing to the relevant clauses, explained patiently and professionally why Li Wenlong's actions were illegal and what responsibilities he would have to bear. Hearing his surname in the officer's mouth, Lin learned the young man's name. Li Wenlong, however, became more agitated when told he was fully responsible. He slammed the report down, his face flushing, neck veins bulging, and cursed at Lin. "It's your fault, brat. You blocked the way. I'm not taking this. I won't sign this report." He looked like a bull ready to charge. Lin noticed something else. Li Wenlong's behavior wasn't just entitled and aggressive, it was erratic. His eyes were glassy, unfocused, his reactions were illogical. A suspicion rose in Lin's mind. He turned to Officer Liu. "Officer Liu, I want to report him for taking drugs. Look at his condition. He's not acting normally." Officer Liu's expression grew serious. He nodded and made a call. Soon, technicians arrived with professional equipment. First, they asked Li Wenlong to take a breathalyzer to rule out drunk driving. He refused, clamping his mouth shut, struggling and cursing at the testing staff to avoid the test. After the officers restrained him as necessary, medical staff drew several tubes of his blood for a laboratory drug screening panel. The entire process was recorded and carefully documented. Officer Liu turned to Lin and spoke in a calm, reassuring voice. "Don't worry. The responsibility report is based on a comprehensive on-site investigation and professional appraisals. It has legal effect whether or not he signs. If he disagrees, he can file for a formal review later, but with the evidence we have, his full responsibility is clear. You can go home and rest. Drive your car directly to the 4S shop. We'll coordinate with the other party, and you won't have to pay for the repairs yourself. Everything will be handled according to standard accident procedures." Lin thanked Officer Liu and left the station. The next morning, Lin woke early as usual. After a quick wash, he put together a simple, healthy breakfast to take to the hospital to visit his mother. A horn sounded outside the gate. He went out and saw the village chief, Huang Shu, waiting on his electric bicycle. "Morning, Huang Shu," Lin greeted. The village chief returned the greeting, then said, "Lin Yang, I came because I have something to tell you. Have you offended anyone lately?" Lin was taken aback. "Offended anyone? No, nothing. Why do you ask?" Huang Shu sighed. "It's about the approval for your house reconstruction. It's stuck at the county level. By rights, your family meets the conditions and all the documents are in order, so there shouldn't be a problem, but the higher-ups refuse to sign it. I've asked around several times and haven't gotten a clear reason." Lin frowned, thinking of his parents, honest, kind people who wouldn't have enemies. Suddenly, the image of the arrogant young man from the accident, incessantly shouting, "My father is Li Gang," flashed through his mind. Could Li Gang be the reason the county approval was being held up? "Huang Shu," Lin asked carefully, "is there a leader named Li Gang at the county level? Yesterday at the scene, someone kept saying his father is Li Gang and was very arrogant." At the name Li Gang, Huang Shu's face tightened. He lowered his voice. "You'd better not have offended him. He's a newly appointed county leader and holds a lot of power." The realization hit Lin hard. The holdup on his family's house approval suddenly made sense. Chapter 131, New Weekly Intelligence. Lin Yang immediately understood why the approval for his family's house reconstruction had been stalled. It was almost certainly because Li Wenlong's blood test had turned up problems. The penalty for driving under the influence was severe. Not only would the license be revoked, but it could also mean 1 to 6 months of detention. After last night's live broadcast went viral, Li Gang could no longer use his connections as openly as before. Li Wenlong was going to suffer, and Li Gang would hold him responsible. Once he learned Lin Yang's family planned to rebuild their house, he'd had someone put up obstacles. It was the old story. It's easy to attack the big shot, but the little schemes are harder to trace. Still, Lin Yang wasn't worried. He'd dealt with people like Li Gang before and knew how to fight back. Public opinion on the internet was a powerful lever. Once it began to ferment, Li Yang wouldn't be able to stall the approval without paying a price. For now, there was no rush. Preliminary work on the reconstruction could wait a few days. He'd let public opinion do the rest. Putting the stalled approval and the public opinion plan aside for the moment, Lin Yang called a designated driver to take the damaged U8 to the 4S dealership for repairs. He drove his newly bought M9, grabbed breakfast, and headed to the hospital to visit his mother. Morning light spilled through the ward window, scattering warm patches across the floor. His parents smiled in relief when he walked in with breakfast. He set the food down, and they gratefully accepted. The elderly woman who had added him on WeChat was still sitting by the bed. When she saw him, she brightened immediately, face creasing into a broad smile. "Oh, little Lin, you finally made it. I was just thinking about you," she said. Lin Yang was a little taken aback but smiled politely. "Good morning, Auntie. You look well today." The old lady beamed. "Thanks to you, my illness is almost gone. I'll be discharged soon." Then she leaned in conspiratorially. "Little Lin, remember the blind date I'm arranging with my niece? I'll talk to her when I get home and call you as soon as the time is set. She's got excellent background, beautiful, gentle. You two would be perfect together. Once I'm out, I'll arrange it. Who knows, you might be a match." Lin Yang flushed and awkwardly scratched his head. He'd never expected a blind date in a hospital. He didn't want to offend her enthusiasm, so he forced a smile. "Auntie, you're very kind, but I'm focusing on my career right now." The old lady waved him off. "Career's important, but marriage can't be put off forever. Look at you, all alone. Wouldn't it be better to have someone who cares for you? Meeting someone won't hurt." He could only smile wryly and go along with her. Just then, the resident doctor came in for rounds. White coat, stethoscope, a professional, gentle expression. He nodded politely to everyone and addressed Lin Yang's parents. "Good morning. How are you feeling today?" They both said they were much better. The doctor's gaze turned to Lin Yang. "Who is Yang Kaixia's family member here?" "I am," Lin Yang answered. The doctor examined the charts and nodded. "All the test results are in. No major issues. Everything's basically within the normal range, except for slightly high blood lipids. When you go home, maintain a light diet, cut down on oil, eat more vegetables and fruit, exercise moderately, and get regular checkups." Relief washed visibly across Lin Yang and Lin Weigo's faces. The tension drained away. Lin Yang felt as if a heavy weight had been lifted and thanked the doctor. The doctor smiled, added a few more daily care suggestions, and moved on to the next ward. Lin Yang took care of the discharge procedures. Once everything was complete, he helped his mother to the car while his father trailed behind, and they drove home. Over the next few days, he focused on promoting the video about "My Dad is Li Gang" and then waited for public opinion to do its work. A week passed almost unnoticed, and Sunday arrived. Lin Yang had barely opened his eyes when a system notification pinged on his device. This week's intelligence had been pushed. He opened the panel. The system had sent 4 pieces of intelligence, one more than the guaranteed 3. Not bad. He didn't hesitate and hit the reset option. Ding, reset successful. Another notification chimed. Having used the reset function 3 times in total, the system gifted 1 high-value intelligence. The panel now showed 5 items instead of 4. Lin Yang frowned. Resetting hadn't increased the number of items, but the system had added a bonus high-value intelligence for cumulative resets. He clicked to view the contents. The gifted high-value intelligence read, "Professor Gong has improved the lithium ore extraction process, increasing efficiency by 50% and reducing costs by 20%. He is currently looking for partners. Direct contact will lead to success." Lin Yang's heart leapt. This was huge. The new energy vehicle industry was booming, and lithium ore, the core raw material, had become extraordinarily valuable. A decade ago, it had been about 20,000 yuan per ton. Now it was 500,000 yuan per ton, 25 times higher. Demand showed no signs of slowing, and prices were expected to keep rising. Professor Gong's breakthrough was a game changer. A 50% boost in extraction efficiency meant Fuji Battery's lithium facilities could produce far more in the same time, alleviating chronic shortages and allowing the company to take on more orders and expand market share. A 20% cost reduction directly increased profit margins. Previously, high extraction costs had eaten into profits. Even with strong sales, the bottom line suffered. Now, every ton produced would save a significant amount. Given Foodie Battery's scale, annual savings could be enormous, money that could be plowed into R&D, equipment upgrades, and other investments to strengthen the company's competitive edge. As Foodie Battery's largest shareholder, any profit surge would directly increase Lin Yang's personal wealth. That wealth wouldn't just let him pursue personal ambitions, it would amplify his influence in the business world. With greater financial muscle, he could move into emerging industries, expand his holdings, and gain a stronger foothold in the market. The thought of this new leverage and the opportunities it would open made his mind race with possibilities. Chapter 132, Planting Peppers. Weekly Intel 1, Li Gang's Villa, Block 3, Unit 201, Jufeng Community, Fenghuang County, contains $40 million in cash hidden in the bathroom ceiling. Reporting him to the authorities could earn you a reward of at least $500,000. Li Gang, the arrogant father of Li Wenlong, who always bragged that nobody in the county would dare touch him, had always rubbed people the wrong way. Fenghuang County wasn't rich. It had only recently shed its poverty county label. For a public servant to be hiding 40 million yuan in the ceiling of his bathroom was explosive. Li Wenlong's misdeeds reflected on his father only so far as he was an adult, but if that 40 million turned out to be real, Li Gang wouldn't just be disgraced, he'd be going to prison. Last night's traffic accident had been clearly Li Wenlong's fault, yet Li Gang had turned that anger on me. As long as he remained in power, he would keep finding ways to make trouble for me. The refusal to approve my old house reconstruction was only the start. If this intel was accurate, this was the perfect opportunity to take him out. It would not only clear the obstacle to the reconstruction permit, but also get rid of a future source of trouble. Weekly Intel 2. At the entrance of Fenghuang County No. 1 Middle School, an 8 immortal table discarded by a bankrupt second-hand bookstore was found by an old scavenger. Inside a hidden compartment was the ancient book Lebu Yunlu. Buy the 8 immortal table from the bookstore before Friday to obtain Lebu Yunlu. An ancient book? Lin Yang didn't know what Lebu Yunlu was or how valuable it might be, but if it showed up in the weekly intel, it had to be worth a lot, at least several million. And an 8 immortal table, an old piece of furniture, a failing second-hand store was discarding, probably cost at most a few dozen yuan. The potential return was astronomical. Lin Yang could barely wait for Friday. He wanted to drive over and snatch that table right away. Still, the table wouldn't be on sale for a few days, so there was no rush. He decided to finish reading the other intel before heading to the county town. Weekly Intel 3. At the foot of Black Elk Peak, the downstream lands of the Tuojiang River are fertile and contain various rare elements, making them especially suitable for growing peppers. Peppers grown there taste superior to those from Jiangsu port. Contracting land there to grow peppers could yield a 100-fold profit. Now that he was back in the village, Lin Yang's intel had become refreshingly practical. Growing peppers could really net a 100-fold return. Jiangsu port peppers were famous in Xing City. Authentic Jiangsu port peppers sold for 500 yuan per jin. That price alone didn't sound insane until you remembered ordinary green peppers went for 2 or 3 yuan per jin, and even the most expensive varieties rarely exceeded 10. Yet there were buyers willing to pay 500 yuan per jin, and the crop was often fully pre-ordered before it even flowered. The land in Jiangsu port gave the peppers a unique aroma, texture, and flavor that buyers coveted. The foot of Black Elk Peak belonged to Phoenix Village, the village Lin Yang lived in. A few years earlier, the village had tried developing industries, including renting out land. The plot at the foot of Black Elk Peak had been offered for lease then, but nobody wanted it, even at a very low price, and the matter had been left unresolved. Now, if Lin Yang proposed renting that land, he could probably get it for next to nothing. He checked the numbers on his phone. A typical pepper yield per mu was around 3,000 jin. At 500 yuan per jin, the output value per mu would be 1.5 million yuan. It was a shame the plot at Black Elk Peak was small, only about a dozen mu, so the ideal annual output value would be around 20 million. The initial investment to clear and prepare the land would be minor compared to the expected returns. The pepper business looked solid. Weekly Intel 4. A yellow ox at New Erlai's house in the neighboring village contains a 5 kilograms natural bezoar. You can extract it by buying the ox. No way, natural bezoar? Those were extremely rare, found only in sick cattle, and consequently worth a fortune. Its medicinal uses, clearing heat and detoxifying, treating high fever convulsions, made it priceless in emergencies. While synthetic bezoar existed, natural bezoar was far superior and much more prized. Bezoar was priced by the gram. A 5-kilogram stone was 5,000 grams. At roughly 1,800 yuan per gram on the market, that bezoar would be worth over 9 million yuan. A yellow ox cost maybe 10 to 20,000 yuan. Buying that ox would be an absurdly profitable bargain. After reading all the intel, Lin Yang glanced at his system experience. Weekly intel, 2,500, 3,000. With another 500 experience points, the system would upgrade to the monthly intel system. Each weekly intel granted 100 experience points, so he needed 5 more to reach the next level. With good luck, it could upgrade next week. Even with worse luck, it would only take 2 weeks. Daily intel, each piece worth around tens of thousands up to 1 million. Weekly intel, each piece worth several million. When the system upgraded to monthly intel, would each intel be worth over 10 million? Would the value of the intel itself scale up as the system leveled? Lin Yang closed the system panel and drove to the county's #1 middle school, planning to buy the 8 immortal table and retrieve whatever ancient book might be hidden inside. Chapter 133. Only a fool would buy something even junk collectors don't want. Lin Yang parked slowly at the curb in front of Fenghuang County #1 Middle School. This street held the memories of his youth, and that second-hand bookstore was an even greater treasure from his student days. He opened the car door and felt a breeze on his face, but the familiar street had an unfamiliar air. He hurried to the bookstore entrance and froze. The shop was empty, not a single customer. Old books were heaped on the floor like discarded memories. Once neat shelves tilted and sagged, telling of time's hand. From the loudspeaker, a recorded announcement looped, flat and mechanical. 5 yuan per jin. All old books 5 yuan per jin. Pick whatever you like. The sound echoed through the vacant store and deepened the sense of desolation. Peeling paint showed mottled plaster beneath. A dim lamp in the corner did little to lift the gloom. The whole place looked like an old man abandoned by time. A wave of bitterness rose in Lin Yang. He had never expected the bustling second-hand shop of his youth to fall into such ruin. In an age of popular ebooks, paper volumes really did seem to be drowning in history's tide. He took a steadying breath and stepped inside. The owner sat by the door, head down, repeating the recorded phrase in a monotone. Just look around. All books 5 yuan per jin. Pick whatever you like. Lin Yang nodded absent-mindedly and began to scan the shop. He picked his way through the chaotic stacks, eyes searching every corner. At the back, in a dim corner, he found it. The 8 Immortals table with the hidden compartment. One leg was missing and propped up with a stack of battered books, barely holding the corner. The tabletop was scarred with countless scratches. The wood was cracked and thick with dust. The paint was long gone, leaving raw, lifeless boards in the weak light. Relief flooded him. He hadn't expected the table to still be there. Footsteps sounded at the entrance. "Old Wang, is the table I wanted still there?" called a voice. "No one else would want that broken table besides you. If you want it, take it," the owner replied. Lin Yang turned. A white-haired man had come in, stooped, back bent, face mapped with wrinkles but with sharp, shrewd eyes. Lin Yang felt a jolt of unease. The old man walked straight to the 8 Immortals table without hesitation. Alarm flared in Lin Yang. Could this man know about the ancient text, Libu Yunlue, hidden inside the table? He watched the old man closely. He had also set down a stack of cardboard boxes by the door. His clothes were plain and a little worn, his trousers creased in a way that made him look like a scavenger. But appearances could be deceptive. Junk collectors traveled widely, had sharp eyes for oddities. One couldn't assume ignorance. Lin Yang's breath tightened. He followed the old man's movements and kept his fists ready. The old man put his calloused hand on the table and ran his fingers over the wood, eyes appraising. Lin Yang held his breath, heart pounding, waiting for whatever discovery might come. The old man paused, then frowned. A look of disdain crossed his face. "Old Wang, it's missing a leg." "I don't want it," he said in a dry, hoarse voice, loud in the quiet shop. He clapped his hands as if to dust them off and turned to leave. Joy and relief rushed through Lin Yang. He relaxed, forcing a casual air as he continued to browse, flipping through books while keeping the old man in peripheral view. Only when the man's back disappeared through the door did Lin Yang put the book down and walk up to the owner. He cleared his throat. "Boss, is this table for sale? I collect old furniture. Things like this feel right at home." The owner looked up from his phone and stared at him for a moment. "You want that broken table?" he asked. "Yes." Lin Yang nodded with conviction. The owner snorted. "If you want it, take it. It's missing a leg. Even the junk collectors don't want it." Lin Yang didn't want the table for nothing. If the owner later discovered the hidden compartment and regretted selling it, he could try to claim it back. A clear transaction left no room for dispute. He pulled out his phone. "How about 100 yuan?" he offered. The owner blinked, surprised, then quickly agreed. "All right." Lin Yang scanned the code, paid, lifted the battered table, and carried it out. It was larger than an average table, but the wood was dry and light for its size. He tied it to the roof rack, checked the ropes until the table felt secure, climbed into the car, started the engine, and drove away. After he left, the owner grinned and muttered to himself, "There are so many fools these days. Someone actually paid 100 yuan for a table even junk collectors wouldn't touch." Chapter 134. Comrade, you are breaking the law. At 10 in the morning, the streets of Fenghuang County were alive with activity. Traffic flowed smoothly in every direction. People hurried along the sidewalks. In a safe spot at an intersection stood Traffic Police Officer Li Peng. He was streaming live on his phone, hosting a legal education broadcast. In his crisp uniform, epaulets and badge catching the sunlight, white cap tilted neatly, he looked every bit the professional. "Hello everyone, welcome to my live stream. Today we'll continue our discussion on traffic regulations," he announced, smiling and speaking clearly into the camera. "As you all know, ordinary passenger cars can carry items on the roof, but there are rules," Li Peng went on. "First, there must be a proper luggage rack, and whatever's carried must not be too large or too heavy, otherwise it creates safety hazards and can violate traffic laws." Comments scrolled across the screen like a tide. "Officer Li, how do you define too large or too heavy? Is there a specific standard we can follow?" Viewers were eager, and Li Peng was about to explain when something caught his eye. An SUV was approaching, one that stood out in the stream of cars. Tied to its roof, lying face up and swaying with every bump, was a large 8 Immortals table. It was wildly oversized for a car roof and looked dangerous. "Everyone, look!" Li Peng shouted, angling his phone toward the SUV. "The load on that car's roof is clearly oversized. That's a suspected violation. I'm heading over to educate the driver and issue the appropriate fine." He moved toward the SUV. Inside, Lin Yang sat behind the wheel, music playing, fingers tapping the steering wheel in time with the beat. He was completely unaware until 2 crisp knocks sounded against the window. He turned and saw Officer Li Peng's professional, friendly face. Puzzled, he rolled down the window. "Hello, comrade," Li Peng said with a polite salute. "I'm Traffic Police Officer Li Peng from Fenghuang County. According to Article 54 of the Regulations for the Implementation of the Road Traffic Safety Law, passenger vehicles are not permitted to carry goods outside a proper luggage rack or the trunk. Even when using a luggage rack, the load may not extend more than half a meter above the roof, and the vehicle's total height may not exceed 4 meters. That 8 Immortals table on your roof clearly exceeds those limits. It affects stability and can cause accidents. You're suspected of breaking the law." Lin Yang's face fell. "Officer, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to. I just bought the table from a second-hand shop and was taking it home. I didn't think about the rules." Li Peng nodded. "I understand. Many people aren't aware of the specifics, which is why we do this education. Please pull over to a safe spot. We'll handle this quickly, and I'll explain the regulations in more detail. Keep this in mind going forward." Lin Yang complied. He carefully drove to the roadside and stopped. Li Peng followed, produced a citation, and started filling it out. "Comrade, the fine this time is 200 yuan, he said as he wrote. "The point isn't the money, it's for you to remember the safety issues and obey the rules in future." Lin Yang took the ticket, scanned the QR code, and paid. He knew the officer was right, and although it stung a little, he accepted the penalty. At Li Peng's suggestion, he opened the car door and went to remove the table from the roof. The Eight Immortals table looked ancient and battered, but it was heavy and unwieldy. Lin Yang spent a long time untying the ropes. He took a deep breath, grasped the table's edges with both hands, and hoisted. Halfway through the lift, his footing slipped. The table tipped. He lost balance. With a loud crack, the table tumbled off the roof and smashed against the curb, splintering loudly in the middle of the busy street. Passers-by turned at the noise. Lin Yang froze, embarrassed, then bent to examine the wreckage. Among the scattered wood lay a yellowed book. It had fallen out of a hidden compartment in the table. He dropped what he was doing and scooped the book up. At that moment, viewers of Officer Li's live stream saw it too. The chat exploded. "Whoa, what was that fell out of the table?" one comment read. "It looks like a book. Is it old? Is it a treasure?" Another chimed in. "This plot twist. He was just getting ticketed and now this," someone wrote. Speculation ran wild. Maybe it's a lost martial arts manual. He's about to hit the jackpot. An imperial diary? Imagine what secrets it might contain. Amid the flood of guesses, one sharp-eyed viewer grabbed a screenshot and typed rapidly, fingers trembling. "Guys, I think I see the words Libu Yunlue on it." That message fell into the chat like a bomb. "Libu Yunlue? What's that? Sounds important." "I know that. Wait, I think someone who knows about ancient books is here," another comment replied. A knowledgeable viewer stepped forward in the stream with an explanation. Libu Yunlue is a rhyme book from the Song dynasty. It was an essential reference for scholars taking the imperial examinations, like an ancient equivalent of a dictionary. Song editions are extremely rare and highly prized among collectors. There's a saying in the collecting world, one page of a Song edition can be worth a fortune. If this really is a Song-era Libu Yunlue, it could be priceless. The live chat went wild again. "No way, an ancient book worth that much?" "His luck, bought a table and found a treasure. So jealous, why doesn't that happen to me?" Excitement and envy poured through the stream. The discovery had turned a routine traffic stop into a sensation, and curiosity about the yellowed book reached a boiling point. Chapter 135. You are too unqualified. Inside the second-hand bookstore at the gate of Fenghuang County No. 1 Middle School, it was empty and quiet. The owner sat behind the counter, idly staring at his phone and watching the live stream. When the camera showed the Eight Immortals table strapped to Lin Yang's car roof, his eyes went wide. He stared as the table shattered and the ancient book slipped out, then surged with disbelief and panic. Wasn't this the Eight Immortals table I sold?" he muttered, voice shaking. As the live stream continued, viewers debating furiously, clips replaying, the owner's heart pounded. When someone in the chat identified the book as the Libu Yunlue, his face drained of color and his lips trembled. "What have I done?" he shouted, slapping his thigh. He jumped up, grabbed his hair, and paced the tiny shop, muttering in a frenzy. "I'm an idiot. I sold a treasure for 100 yuan. How could I have missed that hidden book?" Every step was a stomp, as if he could stamp out his regret. He remembered the day Lin Yang bought the table, the young man's nervousness and caution. Back then, he'd thought Lin Yang was a fool to spend money on a broken table with a missing leg. Now he wanted to slap himself. "If I'd found that book, I'd be set for life, maybe even famous in the collector world. Instead, someone else will benefit." He sank into his chair as if drained, hands limply at his sides, consumed by remorse. At the Fenghuang County Museum, soft lights picked out exhibits behind glass. The curator sat at his desk, reading a cultural relic protection plan through delicate spectacles, fountain pen marking the margins. The office door burst open, and Assistant Xiao Liu ran in, flushed and out of breath. The pen nearly slipped from the curator's hand. "Xiao Liu, calm down. Can you speak properly?" The curator asked, annoyed. Xiao Liu barely caught his breath. "Curator, something big, no, wonderful. A copy of the Libu Yunlue has been found in our county." The curator's eyes went wide. The document thudded to the desk as he stood and leaned forward. You said the Lubu Yunlue? Are you sure? Xiao Liu nodded and handed over his phone. The live stream showed Lin Yang picking up the ancient book. The curator snatched the phone, muttering, Yes, Lubu Yunlue. This is a major discovery. He knew the value. The Lubu Yunlue, an official rhyme book promulgated in the Song dynasty, was an indispensable tool for imperial exam candidates and carried enormous cultural and historical weight. Song editions are rare. There's an old saying that a single leaf of a Song print is worth its weight in gold. If the museum could secure this copy, it would be a career-making acquisition. Excitement lit the curator's face. He paced, talking through a plan. Xiao Liu, contact the owner immediately. Call every channel you have. Explain to him how important this is for our research and persuade him to donate it to the museum. We'll present him with an honorary banner and give him a 500 yuan reward. We'll put his name prominently in the museum and praise his contribution to preserving cultural heritage. Move quickly. This can't be allowed to slip away. Xiao Liu left at once, the curator still pacing, picturing the book already in the museum's collection. Back at the scene, Lin Yang had put the Lubu Yunlue away and tossed the broken pieces of the Eight Immortals table into a trash bin. Officer, I've paid the fine and had the legal lecture. Can I go now? He asked. Officer Li Peng nodded. Now that there's nothing on your roof and everything's legal, you can leave. Thanks, officer. Lin Yang drove off. On the live stream, netizens debated in a flood of comments. Some urged Lin Yang to get an authoritative appraisal to verify authenticity and value. Others advised selling the book to a private collector for a comfortable fortune. Still others called for donation to a museum so the public could enjoy and preserve this cultural relic. The conflicting voices pressed around him like a tide. Meanwhile, Assistant Xiao Liu raced to contact Lin Yang. Calls and messages went unanswered. The curator waited nervously in his office for news. The bookstore owner remained stupefied at his counter, occasionally muttering like a man who'd lost his soul. When the junk dealer Old Li dragged a stack of cardboard past the shop, the owner leapt up. Old Li, you were supposed to take that table. Why didn't you? He shouted. If you'd moved it, I might have at least gotten a cut, but that kid bought it outright. Old Li looked confused. Old Wang, what are you talking about? Lin Yang drove home and had just parked when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Fenghuang County Museum. He answered, curious but wary. This museum's reputation wasn't spotless. A few years back, there'd been accusations that real items had been stolen and fakes displayed, and the scandal never really resolved. Hello? Lin Yang said. A sharp male voice replied, Hello, is this Mr. Pai? Lin Yang? I'm the assistant to the curator at Fenghuang County Museum. Lin Yang hesitated but listened. We saw Officer Li Peng's legal education program and learned you have a copy of the Lubu Yunlue. This book is of great importance to our study of the Song dynasty. Mr. Lin, you must care about preserving history. Will you donate the Lubu Yunlue to our museum? Our curator said we'll present you with an honorary banner and give you a 500 yuan reward. We'd like to recognize you in person. Lin Yang bristled at the flattery. He suspected moral pressure was coming next. Spending 100 yuan to acquire the book didn't mean others could claim it for nothing. He refused flatly. The curator's assistant's voice grew agitated. How can you be like this? This is rude. Such a priceless work cannot realize its value in your hands. Heh. Lin Yang didn't bother with the caller anymore. He hung up and blocked the number, then snapped a photo of the book, the Lubu Yunlue, and sent it to Lin Baian for an appraisal. After a few exchanges, he decided Lin Baian was trustworthy, experienced in antiques and fair in price, someone easy to sell to. Lin Baian replied soon after. He'd been in the antiques trade for years, and after studying the photo carefully, offered a measured opinion. Collectors for this sort of ancient text aren't rare, but it's not easy to sell on the open market, and prices aren't high. Your best bet is to put it up for auction. Even with fees deducted, you'll likely get more than you would from me. Hearing that, Lin Yang felt a quick lift of excitement. He asked about auction channels, and Lin Baian readily offered an introduction. Lin Yang thanked him repeatedly and ended the call. Xiao Yang, dinner's ready. His mother called from the kitchen. Oh, Lin Yang answered and went in. At the dinner table, the family gathered around steaming dishes, warm and comfortable. While he ate, Lin Yang casually tossed out a question. Dad, do you know how much an adult yellow ox goes for around here? Lin Weigo froze mid-chew, fork suspended, then did a quick mental calculation. After a moment, he answered seriously, about 15 yuan a jin. If an ox weighs 1,000 jin, that's 15,000 yuan. Why are you asking about oxen all of a sudden? Lin Yang set down his bowl and smiled brightly, concern and anticipation in his face. Your birthday's coming up, right? I was thinking of buying a yellow ox to slaughter for your banquet. Surprise flickered across Lin Weigo's face, then he frowned. Son, even if I have a birthday banquet, it won't be that many tables. Do we really need an entire ox? In their village, it was traditional for men to mark milestones with a big banquet. Lin Weigo was touched that his son wanted to celebrate him, and though frugal by nature, he didn't object. He simply figured a village banquet would be small, maybe 10 tables at most, and thought a whole ox would be more than enough. Lin Yang had expected that response. He answered slowly, as if savoring the idea. We can cure the leftovers into jerky and preserved beef. They keep a long time, and we can eat them whenever we want. He waved his hand and grinned, picturing the future treats. Lin Weigo slapped his forehead, suddenly enthusiastic. You should have said so earlier. You loved those things as a kid, but we were too poor to have them, except at New Year. Let's go right now. Buy an ox and slaughter it. Your mother can make the jerky. He pushed away his bowl, stood up, and grabbed Lin Yang's arm, as if this were an urgent mission. Lin Yang gently held him back, smiling. No rush, Dad. Let's finish dinner first. In truth, Lin Yang had already decided exactly where they would go. The yellow ox at New Erlai's place in the next village contained a 5-kilogram bezoar, worth about 9 million yuan, and that was the real prize. All right, Lin Weigo said, and after a few more bites, pulled Lin Yang toward the door. New Erlai was notorious in the area, a village bully. He idled away his days, stole chickens and dogs when he needed money, and loved nothing more than mahjong. When he ran out of cash, he stole. When he had stolen goods, he gambled them away. That vicious cycle made him a standout nuisance. Recently, his ox had fallen ill and looked near death. Worried about losing the animal's value, New Erlai had been desperately trying to sell it. He went door to door, pleading with anyone who might buy, his eagerness reading like guilt. But the villagers weren't fools. They all knew him and his reputation. Buying his ox felt like asking to be cheated. So despite his loud offers, no one stepped forward. People muttered behind his back. What's he scheming this time? I wouldn't take his ox if it were free. Who knows what's wrong with it? Right. Hasn't he done enough bad? Selling a sick ox now? No way. Their whispers reached New Erlai and only made him angrier and more desperate. He stared at the sick animal and brooded, unwilling to let the potential money slip away. He started thinking of ways to disguise the ox's illness and trick a buyer. Then he heard word that someone from the neighboring village was looking to buy an ox. His eyes lit up like stars. Excitement made him move like the wind. Clutching the rope, he led his ailing yellow ox and rushed off, convinced that at last there was someone he could swindle. Chapter 137. The cows are just too tired from plowing the fields at night. Lin Yang and his father, Lin Weigo, arrived in the neighboring village with light steps. They headed straight for Tang Long, the family's old friend, who greeted them warmly. After a brief talk, Tang Long went around asking the villagers if anyone had a cow for sale and came back with a few leads. He was about to take Lin Yang and his father to the houses he'd checked when a shabby figure leading a yellow ox suddenly appeared. The man wore a wrinkled black t-shirt with the hem untucked and smeared with dirt. His loose jeans were frayed at the cuffs and full of holes, giving him a slovenly, careless look. His hair seemed unwashed for days, greasy and flattened against his scalp, with a few strands sticking up like a bird's nest. He swaggered, rocking from side to side, a cigarette dangling from his mouth. His eyes were narrowed and crafty. His whole demeanor set people on edge. He walked up grinning, revealing smoke-stained yellow teeth. Boss, you want to buy a cow, right? Take a look at mine. What do you think? His tone was casual and flippant, the kind that put people on guard immediately. Tang Long's face hardened the moment he saw him, His brow knotted into a deep frown, and his expression turned to disgust. He waved a hand impatiently. New Erlai, get out of here. This is my friend. If you want to cheat someone, go do it somewhere else. Move along. The man was New Erlai, the village near Dewell everyone avoided. He did nothing but loaf around all day, stole chickens and dogs when he needed money, and spent his nights at the mahjong table. If he was selling a cow, people assumed something was wrong with it. When Lin Yang heard the name, his eyes lit up. The intel he'd received had said there was a natural bezoar in the family's cow. This was the opportunity he'd been waiting for. Wait a moment, old Tang, Lin Yang said quickly. Since he brought the cow over, let's at least take a look. Tang Long's worry deepened. Lin Yang, this man isn't trustworthy. He loafs and steals. If he's selling a cow, he's up to something. Don't do business with him, or you'll get scammed. Lin Yang gave a calm smile. Thanks for the warning, old Tang, but it won't hurt to look. Maybe the cow is useful for something. He stepped toward New Erlai and sized up the animal. How many cows do you have at home? Is this one yours? New Erlai blinked at the sudden question, recovered, and answered smoothly. Just this one. It's my family's treasure. I've raised it for years. Lin Yang's lips curved slightly. He was already convinced this was the cow with the bezoar. It's a decent size, but it looks sickly. Is it ill? New Erlai's heart skipped, but he kept his composure. No, mister. Don't get the wrong idea. It's just tired, been plowing through the nights lately. Give it a few days rest and it'll perk up. It's not sick. Lin Yang knew the story didn't add up, but he didn't call him out. Tang Long, watching, couldn't help advising again. Lin Yang, don't listen to him. I don't know much about cows, but this one's not right. It's swaying when it walks. If you buy it, who knows what trouble you'll get. Don't buy it. New Erlai's face darkened. Mind your own business. I'm doing business here. If you say another word, don't blame me for being rude. Tang Long straightened, unshaken. You think I'm scared of you? Cheating others is one thing, but don't try to cheat my friend. Lin Yang watched the two men argue and privately admired his father's friend. Straightforward, never backed down, exactly the kind of man worth knowing. He stepped between them and with a firm voice told New Erlai, I'll judge the cow myself. What do you mean threatening, old Tang? Do you still want to sell the cow or not? New Erlai's arrogance collapsed under Lin Yang's calm pressure. Panic flashed across his face, and he plastered on a flattering grin. Boss, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I was just nervous. Don't worry about it. If you like the cow, the price is negotiable. He knew the animal was on its last legs. If this sale fell through, he'd lost his chance. Seeing New Erlai fawn, Lin Yang decided to press the advantage and began to haggle, pointing at the cow with a hint of disdain. This cow's scrawny, unsteady on its feet, and sickly. There's not much meat on it. At most 5 or 6 yuan per jin. New Erlai jumped. That's too low. 5 or 6 a jin and I'd never get my cost back. It's just tired. I tell you, it's healthy. 15 yuan a jin at least. That's already the lowest I can do. Lin Yang snorted, turned away and started off. It's not worth that. I'll look elsewhere. Panicked, New Erlai chased after him, grabbed his arm and forced on a pleading smile. Boss, wait, let's talk. Price is negotiable. Name a number, not crazy, and I'll sell. Lin Yang kept his face unreadable. After a moment, he said, 10 yuan per jin, and that's the absolute max. Any more, and I walk. New Erlai hesitated, then forced out a reluctant grin. All right, since you're serious, 10 yuan a jin sold. Today I'm cutting my losses. Inside, he was elated. Selling the dying cow for 10 a jin was a windfall he hadn't expected. Lin Yang paid 10,000 yuan in total and led the sickly yellow ox away. Tang Long stamped his feet in frustration beside them, trying one last time to persuade Lin Yang. Don't be stupid. That cow's clearly on its last legs. You're wasting money. Take it back. Lin Yang patted old Tang's shoulder with an appreciative smile. Thanks for looking out for me. I know what I'm doing. I have a plan for this cow. Lin Weiguo glanced at his son's determined eyes and nodded. He knew his son well enough to trust he had a purpose in mind. He pulled Tang Long along and said, Old Tang, thanks for your help today. Come over to our place for dinner. We'll have a proper meal together. Unable to refuse, Tang Long followed them home. New Erlai, money in hand, grinned ear to ear, smug at the thought of his luck. What a fool, he thought. 10,000 for a sick cow, jackpot. Lin Yang smiled as he watched New Erlai's expression, thinking the bitter irony. If the man knew the cow contained a natural bezoar worth 9 million, he'd wish the ground would swallow him. As they made their way down the road back to Lin Weiguo's village, people recognized the cow and clustered to stare. When they heard Lin Yang had paid 10,000 yuan for New Erlai's sickly cow, laughter and mockery broke out among the villagers. Is this kid out of his mind? 10,000 for a sick cow? A middle-aged man jeered. We all know New Erlai. His things are never good. That young man's been had, an old woman said pityingly. He's too green. That 10,000 went down the drain. More villagers joined the ridicule until a small crowd had formed. Lin Yang only smiled faintly and didn't bother to defend himself. They were short-sighted, seeing only the surface. They had no idea what value this dying-looking cow actually held. Chapter 138, Natural Bezoar. Lin Yang and his father, Lin Weiguo, were slowly leading a yellow ox home with Tang Long's help. Although the animal looked sickly, it drew a lot of attention from the neighbors. Old Lin, did you buy an ox? Aunt Li asked as she passed by, curiosity written all over her face. What are you going to do with it? Lin Weiguo's face lit up. It's almost my birthday, and Xiaoyang insisted we buy an ox to slaughter for the feast. He said it would make the celebration livelier. I told him such a big ox wasn't necessary, but he insisted. Oh, Lin Yang is so filial. This will be quite a celebration, Uncle Wang said, giving a thumbs up. It's rare to see such filial children these days. Aunt Li's eyes gleamed with envy as she added, truly admirable. Lin Weiguo tried to play it modest. No, he said, but the corners of his mouth couldn't hide his smile. He was quietly pleased. Their praise was cut short when someone in the crowd, who'd been watching closely, suddenly frowned and pointed at the ox. Old Lin, you've been swindled. That ox is clearly sick. All eyes turned to the animal. The mood shifted from festive to tense in an instant. People drew closer to inspect it. The ox's eyes were dull, its coat lacked luster, it staggered on its legs, and it let out weak moans. Look at it sway when it walks. It must be seriously ill, someone observed. The person who sold this ox did a rotten thing, another said. They must have known it was sick. Sympathy and pity rippled through the crowd. Some urged Lin Weiguo to return the ox before he wasted his money. The smile froze on Lin Weiguo's face, and he looked uncomfortable. Xiaoyang, what's going on? What did you buy this for? He asked. Dad, don't listen to them, Lin Yang said quietly. We won't lose anything. Let's bring the ox home first. All right. Trusting his son, Lin Weiguo started to move again. But just then, with a loud thud, the ox collapsed. Its legs twitched a few times, and then it went still. A startled murmur went through the crowd. How did it die just like that? Someone cried. What bad luck. What should we do? Accusations flew at the seller. Lin Yang looked at the lifeless animal and felt a moment of helplessness, but he knew the ox's worth wasn't in its meat. What the neighbors said didn't faze him. At that moment, a man stepped forward from among the spectators. He wore black-rimmed glasses and a faded blue work uniform. Excitement lit his face. Don't panic, he called out. I think I've seen an ox with these symptoms before. It might have cholecystitis. If so, there's a good chance it contains a natural bezoar. A natural bezoar? The news spread like wildfire. Faces went from pity to astonished greed. Is that true? Natural bezoars are incredibly valuable. I heard a good one can be worth more than gold, someone added. Eyes refocused on the dead ox, full of expectation. If there really was a bezoar inside, Lin Yang could be set for life. Lin Yang, check it. There might be treasure inside, a young man urged. Quick, cut it open. If there's a bezoar, you'll make a fortune, another cried. Seeing the crowd's eagerness, Lin Yang thought it best to settle things on the spot. Before more people could swarm, the pig butcher from nearby, Uncle Li, stepped up. He clapped a hand on Lin Yang's shoulder. Don't hesitate. I've got a pig slaughtering knife. I'll help. He dashed home and returned quickly with a large, sharp knife. With Lin Yang's consent, Uncle Li knelt by the ox. The crowd held its breath. He gripped the handle with both hands, sliced into the animal's belly, and pulled the knife through, opening a wide gash. Then he reached into the cavity and felt around. Holy cow, there really is a bezoar! Uncle Li shouted. He carefully retrieved a round ball from the ox's insides and rinsed it with water. When the yellowish stone was fully revealed, the village went utterly silent. You could hear a pin drop. People stared as if they couldn't believe their eyes. Some stood with their mouths open, shock frozen on their faces. Others watched unblinkingly, eyes wide as if afraid to miss any detail. A few were so stunned their hands had dropped whatever they were carrying. Uncle Wang was the first to snap back to reality. This is an incredible stroke of luck, he muttered. How much could such a bezoar be worth? He shook his head and sighed with envy. The young man, Xiao Li, couldn't contain his excitement. His face flushed as he clenched his fists. Lin Yang, you are unbelievably lucky. If that bezoar were mine, I wouldn't have to worry for the rest of my life. He reached out as if to touch the stone, eyes shining. Aunt Li squeezed Lin Yang's hand and gushed, Xiao Yang, you're blessed. A bezoar this size is hard to find even with a lamp. You're going to be rich, don't forget your auntie. She patted his hand, flattering him openly. Not everyone was pleased. Aunt Zhao pursed her lips and muttered, maybe it's just a lump of ox dung. Don't count your chickens. A few others sniped from the back. I don't know what kind of damn luck Lin Yang has. Even buying an ox leads to finding a bezoar. If I had that luck, I'd buy oxen every day. Jealousy and resentment rippled through the crowd, and a few heads turned to glare at the smug faces. The excitement over the yellowish stone lingered in the air, hanging between the hopeful and the envious alike. Chapter 139, Value, 9 million. Uncle Li weighed the natural bezoar. It came to exactly 10 caddies, no more, no less. Someone in the crowd quickly checked the going price on their phone and calculated that the lump was worth 9 million yuan. The moment the number was announced, the scene erupted. For a few stunned seconds, no one spoke. Uncle Wang's mouth hung open. Finally, he murmured, 9 million yuan. I've worked my whole life and never made that much. Lin Yang, this boy must have real blessing from his ancestors. He shook his head in amazement and envy. Young Xiaoli's face flushed with excitement as he waved his hands. 9 million. In our village, that could build 10 luxury villas, nicer than those little western houses in the city. Lin Yang's going to be the richest man around here from now on. He couldn't help touching the bezoar again, as if it would bring him luck. Aunt Li grabbed Lin Yang's hand, beaming, and said in a fawning tone, Xiao Yang, you're so blessed. When you make it big, don't forget your auntie. 9 million can buy a family comfort for generations. You're 1 in a million. A few faces in the crowd reddened with jealousy. Aunt Zhao pouted and muttered, it's just luck. Who knows what'll happen next? But her words were swallowed up by the excited chatter. Everyone was still reeling from the shock of the 9 million. People kept glancing at Lin Yang with mixed looks, envy, jealousy, and also congratulations. New Erlai, who had been absorbed in a game of mahjong, suddenly heard everyone talking about how Lin Weiguo from the next village had found a priceless bezoar inside a cow's stomach. The tiles in his hand lost all appeal. He pricked up his ears and listened for every detail. The more he listened, the more anxious he became. A bad premonition rose in his chest. When was the cow you're talking about sold? He asked, trying to sound casual. His voice trembled, betraying his nerves. A fellow player answered offhandedly, just now. It was bought as a sick cow. It died on the way home. Who would have thought there was such a treasure inside it? New Erlai went cold. That was the cow he'd sold. His face drained of color. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Were the people who bought it Lin Yang and his father, Lin Weiguo? He pressed. When they confirmed it, his legs nearly gave out. 9 million yuan slipped through his fingers. It hurt worse than cutting himself. He couldn't stay seated. Abruptly, he stood, flung down his mahjong tiles, and, ignoring the shocked looks, muttered, I've got something urgent. I'm leaving. He burst out of the Guokui Guang and saw an electric bike parked at the entrance. Without caring whose it was, he swung his leg over, turned the key, and sped toward the neighboring village like the wind. All the way his head swirled with the number 9 million. I have to sort this out, he thought. That bezoar should have been mine. I can't let that brat get it so cheaply. The bike kicked up dust as he floored the accelerator and tore down the country road. When Lin Yang and the others got home, the smell of food greeted them and washed away their travel fatigue. His mother ushered them to the table, where a feast awaited: golden pan-fried fish, steaming braised pork, fresh stir-fried seasonal greens, and a pot of rich, slow-cooked soup. Tang Long sat at the table, laughing along with everyone, but his heart raced like a frightened rabbit. He kept replaying the scene of the cow sale. Lin Yang's resolve when he bought the cow hadn't been impulsive. He knew it was a sick animal, yet insisted on buying it even after warnings. If Lin Yang weren't foolish, he must have had a reason. At last, Tang Long set down his chopsticks and looked at Lin Yang seriously. Lin Yang, don't blame me for being nosy, but tell me the truth. Did you know there was a natural bezoar in that cow? The question made the atmosphere at the table tense. All eyes turned to Lin Yang. He was unhurried, a gentle smile on his face. He lifted his teacup, took a light sip, and said slowly, "Uncle Tang, you flatter me. If I had that sort of foresight, I'd be traveling the country buying cows with bezoars in them." He put the cup down, picked up a piece of fish, and ate as if discussing nothing more than the weather. Lin Weiguo, his father, jumped in to smooth things over. "That's right, Tang Long. It was just a coincidence. If Xiaoyang could do that, he wouldn't be staying in our little village." His mother smiled and added, "Let's not pry into the children's affairs. Eat before the food gets cold." Tang Long's doubts eased under the easy conversation, and he laughed. "You're right. I was overthinking." The table filled with chatter and laughter again, as if the small ripple had never occurred. Lin Weiguo glanced at his son with a meaningful look. He knew Lin Yang well enough to suspect he had known about the bezoar before buying the sick cow. But such things were family matters, best kept quiet even from a good friend like Tang Long. "Lin Weiguo, Lin Yang, get out here. Give me back the natural bezoar." A sharp shout came from outside the house, cutting through the room. They hadn't seen who'd arrived, but everyone recognized the voice. New Erlai, the man who had sold the cow. News had spread faster than they thought. They had only just come in from the road and barely begun to eat when someone was already knocking at the door. When Lin Yang stepped outside, he found New Erlai shouting at the iron gate. He looked a mess, like a man dragged out of a swamp. Yellow mud plastered his clothes so tightly it clung to his body. A sharp, fishy smell rose from him. His hair hung in clumps, bits of grass stuck in it, and he was missing a shoe. His bare foot was caked in mud, toes red and swollen as if he'd clawed his way out of a paddy. It was obvious he'd fallen into a field and only just crawled out. Lin Yang frowned. He knew New Erlai well, shameless and stubborn. People like him, once they latched on to something, were hard to shake. Best approach was to be harsher than they were. He took a breath, swallowed his disgust, opened the gate, and tried to reason first, reserving force as a last resort. "New Erlai, our deal was consensual. Money for the ox. That's a legal transaction. Even if you sue, it won't change anything." New Erlai's eyes bulged. He straightened his neck and swaggered forward, bringing his face close to Lin Yang's. "Cut the lawyer talk. That ox was mine, so the bezoar inside is mine too. I only sold you the ox, not the bezoar. Give me the bezoar back today, or I won't let it go." He spat on the ground and ground the spit with his shoeless foot, utterly unreasonable. The commotion had already drawn a crowd of neighbors. Seeing New Erlai's behavior, they started to scold him. "New Erlai, what are you doing? You sold the ox. You can't demand the bezoar now." "Of course. Why didn't you check for that when you sold it? Now someone else gets lucky and you want it back. That's just wrong." Their remarks only made New Erlai louder, but he didn't seem to care. "I don't care. The bezoar's mine," he kept shouting. Reasoning with him was pointless. Lin Yang's face went calm. He decided to raise the stakes. "I might give it back," he said deliberately. "But you sold a sick ox. It died halfway. What if it had rinderpest? Anywhere that ox walked could be contaminated. Dozens of cattle and countless dogs and cats could be infected. To stop an outbreak, we'd have to disinfect everywhere it went. That would cost at least 10 million yuan. Come up with 10 million, and I'll hand over the bezoar." New Erlai's expression went from angry to stunned. 10 million? Lin Yang, are you insane? This is my village, whole village disinfection costing that much? Don't make excuses to cheat me. Lin Yang stayed unhurried, arms folded. 10 million is a conservative estimate. If it spreads to the town or county, losses will be in the hundreds of millions, maybe billions. If you don't produce 10 million today, you won't get the bezoar. The crowd began backing Lin Yang. "Exactly, my pigs could die. Can he afford to compensate us? My dog runs all over outside. What if it's infected too? He should pay." Niu Erlai was red-faced and had no answer. Hearing more accusations piled on, he grew more desperate. His face churned through colors, a flicker of panic in his eyes that he tried to hide with bravado. He ground his teeth like he'd made a decision. You lot are stirring up trouble. I'm taking the Bezoar today. Lin Yang, don't bully me. I don't have money. You must give it back. He lunged toward Lin Yang's doorway. Lin Yang calmly stepped out and blocked him. Niu Erlai, don't be foolish. Keep this up, and I won't be polite. A few young, broad-shouldered neighbors moved to Lin Yang's side, forming a human barrier. Niu Erlai's swagger wavered. He took a step back, but wouldn't admit defeat. You're all ganging up on me. I sold that ox, and I'm owed an explanation. You can't keep my Bezoar. Then an old man in the crowd shuffled forward, leaning on a cane. He looked straight at Niu Erlai. Erlai, that wasn't right. When you sold the ox, why didn't you check? Lin Yang got lucky. So what? You're jealous and making trouble. That's no way to be. The neighbors murmured agreement and renewed their criticism. Surrounded and sensing a punch might come from any direction, Niu Erlai grew nervous. He was stuck. Lin Yang saw the chance to finish it. One last chance. Leave now and stop making a fool of yourself. Otherwise, I'll call the police. Niu Erlai glared at him, furious and humiliated. He ground out, Fine, Lin Yang. You wait. This isn't over, and stalked toward his electric bike. He mounted the bike, muttering curses, and pushed off. Either flustered or blinded by rage, he didn't watch the road. The front wheel struck a raised stone, and the bike tipped. Niu Erlai and the bike pitched into the roadside ditch with a heavy splash. People rushed over to find him thrashing in the water, crying out. His foot was trapped under the bike, and blood welled from the wound, rapidly staining the water red. He sobbed and howled, Help me! Somebody save me! Lin Yang and a few neighbors waded into the ditch and, with effort, freed him from under the bike. His foot was a bloody mess. Someone called 120, and an ambulance arrived soon after. Paramedics lifted Niu Erlai onto a stretcher and sped him to the hospital. As the ambulance drove off, the crowd dispersed, the farce over for now. Lin Yang watched the vehicle go, let out a long breath, and started back inside. He was exhausted, physically and mentally, and all he wanted was a rest. The brief calm broke when a black car eased up to the gate. A middle-aged man wearing glasses stepped out. His black suit was neat, his dark blue tie straight, hair carefully combed. He moved with the composed air of someone used to attention. He walked up to Lin Yang and politely asked, Excuse me, does Lin Yang live here? Lin Yang felt puzzled but answered, That's me. Who are you? The man smiled gently, took a business card from his briefcase, and handed it over with both hands. I'm Xiao Qing, a researcher from the Provincial Museum. I heard you have a Song Dynasty Libu Yunlue. Our museum is very interested and would like to discuss acquiring it. Lin Yang glanced at the card, then invited him in. Inside, his mother brought tea, and Lin Yang got straight to the point. We might sell, but it depends on the price. Xiao Qing pushed up his glasses and spoke earnestly. The museum is sincere. We have special funds approved. After evaluation, we can offer up to 5 million yuan for the Libu Yunlue.